I'm not a mechanic, and I've never changed a timing belt before in my life. A lot of people avoid doing this themselves because it seems like a big scary job, but I'm giving it a go anyway. In the past, I've done the brakes, oil, filters, spark plugs, changed the rocker cover, and even the engine loom on this previously disrespected Astra VXR. I've also fitted coilovers, a hybrid turbo, high pressure fuel pump, injectors, exhaust and more to my 1.9 diesel Vectra, which made 240 wheel horsepower on the dyno. I've always avoided anything to do with timing because it can be catastrophic for your engine if you get it wrong. However, I want to prove that if you take your time and follow a guide on an owner's forum or your service manual, it really is easy enough to do it yourself on most cars. Plus, you can often save a few £100 of labour costs at the expense of a relaxed Sunday at home. With the car in the air and the driver's side wheel removed for access to the side of the engine with the timing belt, I can almost get started. But first, I spotted a couple of things under the car that need taking care of.
Well, this is a new one on me. My exhaust flexi is completely full of hedgehog spikes. Saw a hedgehog the other day in the road, swerved to give it the best ground clearance down the middle of the car. Maybe that wasn't quite enough ground clearance and he sort of fought back against my exhaust. I've also just spotted this banding on the back of the brake disc on the front. Looks suspiciously close to where the heat shield goes. I'm just going to bend that back and hopefully the brakes start to wear evenly, although I'm not confident. That may have screwed up the rotor. Hopefully I don't have to get that resurfaced at any point.
Now that's out of the way, it's time to get started with the timing. The plastic lower arch lining can be removed by simply pulling out 2 plastic trim clips, then undoing 1 Torx screw at the top and 2 more underneath. The aux belt is in the way of removing the lower timing cover, so stick a 15mm spanner on the tensioner, rotate it clockwise and work the now loosened belt off the crank pulley.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer. I don't really think anyone can save me, and honestly, I'm not really sure I want saving.
Not in the worst condition, but 20 quid or however much a new belt was, probably worth replacing.
Next, the 4 E-Torx bolts can be removed from the crank pulley, which pulls right off. There are 2 more E-Torx screws to take out, which attach the lower timing cover.
Better change my mindset, meditate. It's pretty cool that I'm alive and have better days. I could walk, see, hear, I should celebrate. Think I could change my mind, maybe elevate. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days. Kinda stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do I work hard or live at my pace? You're only young once, yeah that's all great.
The intake is now in the way of getting to the engine mount, which has to come off next. A couple of hose clamps are loosened, the MAF sensor is unplugged, and the induction kit can be taken off and placed out the way. With this done first, it's also easier to get to the bolts for the upper timing cover.
Some of us need work, others need fun. Some of us need purpose to overcome. But try to do what you love when it's said and done. Cause there's so many differences in each of us. Trust your gut, it can show you what you want. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need.
Now a jack is used to support the engine while the engine mount is off. It's important to use a rubber puck or a wooden block to protect the sump, as the metal cup of the jack could crush or puncture it if you aren't careful.
can hear the demons call when they do what they do. And now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all.
Here I'm turning the engine over by hand using a 17mm socket to line up the timing mark on the crank with the slit in the bottom of the housing. This ensures that the engine is at top dead center. Next we can go on to check that the cams are lined up with their own timing marks before locking the cam timing with a special tool. In this case, both cams are timed correctly, so we know the timing belt hasn't jumped a tooth or really stretched in its 13 years fitted to the car. The KM853 by Laser is designed for Vauxhall 2-litre and 2.2 engines and slides right between the cam gears to stop them from rotating out of time while you replace the belt. It costs £18 off eBay and makes the job a lot easier. Here's where I ran into my first problem while changing the cam belt. You have to loosen off the screw on the tensioner so you can rotate the arm to take tension off the belt. However, Vauxhall made this a very soft torque screw, and mine was done up really tight, meaning it rounded off the moment I put any force into unscrewing it. In the end, it took drastic measures to remove the bolt, and wasted a good hour of my life.
I can hear the demons call when they do what they do. And now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through. Gotta get through this, life is a nuisance, tie up some loose ends. I try to be human, find a solution, my evolution. A place like this, it didn't exist, we made it like this. So you can go pick the bad or the good, got a glass.
So that's the bolt that you have to loosen off to be able to loosen off the tensioner. It's a Torx screw made of cheese, and the instant I put a T40 in it, which is the right size I checked, to loosen it off, it just stripped the head. So I basically cut a slot into it with a Dremel, ended up cutting half the head off just to make it easier, and that gave me a space to slap a chisel on it and just whack it until it started spinning. Now I got it half the way out so I can carry on taking the tensioner off and finally get this finished.
I know it's easier to hide than just to lay low. Not everyone in life has got a halo. I'm standing in the red inside a payphone. Just wanna break, no, I'm not gonna give in. Take a last shot, Michael J. Win. No, I'm not a robot, I'm in my own skin. Never get lost when thoughts pull you in. I miss the old you, we died with a purpose. All the energy around me felt nervous, scared I would pop out fast to the surface. Had to cut it off before you made me worthless. Torn apart, I've been torn and scarred, I had a given up.
Now I can finally remove the idlers, which are each held on by a single E-Torx bolt. Then I can unscrew the tensioner the rest of the way by hand.
Nice try, but they'll see I achieve everything while they stay salty. I can hear the demons call when they do what they do. And now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through.
A couple of months ago now, I guess, before the wiring loom problem, and what else has gone wrong with it? What hasn't gone wrong with it? Oh yeah, gearbox went again, which I've just had redone under warranty. I bought this timing belt kit and water pump. Water pump's from Courtenay Sport, the rest is from R&D. The aux belt might be from eBay, actually. But yeah, the R&D kit comes with 2 metal idlers, whereas stock you got 1 metal, 1 plastic. If you wanted to order these not from R&D, it would just be 2 of the exhaust idler part number, which should work fine. Comes with a nice sticker to say that the timing's been done, and an uprated bolt for the tensioner, because as you've just seen, the stock one being Torx is awful to get off, just stripped immediately, whereas this one being a hex bolt, I have no problem with next time it comes to getting done. So time to get that all fitted, starting with the water pump.
I'm draining the coolant out of the radiator first because I don't have any service history for the 35,000 miles before I bought the car, so I've no idea how long it's been in there. If you're not doing a full coolant change, you can go straight to removing the water pump, and coolant will just drain out of the block, so you don't have to top up with quite as much.
Switching, you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They'll see with the negativity, but I just slide right.
The water pump is held in with 3 cap head hex bolts, which are cracked with a ratchet, then unscrewed by hand. Then the pump can be popped out, with a bucket placed underneath to catch some of the mess that follows.
Sitting on, man, I still go, 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 go. You got a mind, but even that could change. You could flip the gray matter like some batter in your brain. That's why I say, fake it till you make it A. And if you play that game, then you just might make a change. Rearrange all the bad to okay. Take the worst thoughts saying, turn them to a game. Take the best thoughts saying, put them on display. On repeat in your brain till you're feeling no more pain. Never slow yourself down, you can do some more. Push past all the pain and you'll find a door. Open it up and find.
So it's worth noting that you have to line up the water pump in the exact same position. The pulley on it is a sort of a cam, so as you twist the water pump it gets further or closer from the left side where the belt will be pressed up against it, so it actually helps to tension the belt right. So I just put a screwdriver bit up against the edge of this, which is the marker, to sort of help you line it up, and just scratched into the timing cover a little line. Use a paint mark if you have one of those, but I don't. So that's just how I've reset the alignment on the new pump to make sure it's the same as the old one.
With the new pump fitted, the bolts are torqued to 25 Newton meters, and the idlers can also be attached using the same torque setting.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Too many things going on.
Here I'm cleaning up the crank pulley and inside the timing cover with a rag and some brake cleaner to remove any slippery coolant that could make a mess of the new belt. Then I can loosely fit the new tensioner.
It's awfully chilly outside when there's no shelter to hide. When everything is a lie, you'll find that out in some time. But when the things on your mind are all considered a crime, communication aside, we'll all just fight till we die. Is this an argument or just the start of it? Either way, I don't wanna be a part of it. Can I just get some?
It's finally time to fit the Cambelt, sliding it over the idlers and pulleys in the same path the old belt took. The hard part is wrestling it over the cam gears at the top while keeping the crank from rotating. It's best to get an extra pair of hands to help with this if possible. After a lot of struggling, I tried putting the belt over the cam gears first and the tensioner last, and it slid on relatively easily first try. I did have to redo it though, as the crank moved a tooth on the first try, so it's important to check the timing marks still line up when you're done.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small.
Initially, we turn the tensioner anti-clockwise, just tighter than the new belt mark on the indicator at the top. Nip up the middle bolt to hold it in place, then torque to 20 Newton meters. The locking tool can be removed from the cam gears at this point, and the engine turned over a few times by hand to check that the belt runs true, nothing rubs, and everything stays in time.
But I can feel his tense, don't know the consequence. The volatility of life, my only confidence. Is this an argument or just the start of it? Either way, I don't wanna be a part of it. Can I just get some space? I don't have the heart for this. I can't be.
Right, so now back at top dead centre, the crank is perfectly in line, which means I've done my job correctly. There's the timing mark on the crank, in line with the timing mark on the engine cover. And after a whole lot of fucking about, the actual timing belt change part of the job done.
Next, I can fill up the coolant, leaving the cap off to give it time to drain out of the reservoir while the rest of the engine is being reassembled. The VXR takes 7.7 litres of coolant, so I'm adding a litre of distilled water, then a litre of coolant, 3 times. Later on in the video I'll top it up, bleed the system, then top up the rest of the way as needed.
I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town. What the hell's wrong with me? I don't get along with anybody, honestly. I've been living in my own head constantly, thoughts jumbled round, think I need a new lobotomy.
Now I can slap the timing covers and the engine mount back on the car.
Gotta show 'em what I got, I'm competitive. You know I'm about to go off, I won't let 'em win, I'll take a stab. I wanna chase the bag, I wanna weigh, I can change all the things I lack. I gotta face the facts, I got a taste in that. Got me obsessed with the rest, I got an itch to scratch.
When I went to put this bolt back in, it spun, and it spun, and it spun. So I tried to wrap it in Teflon tape, still spun. And in the end I had to lean on it with all my weight to get it to thread in. After about 5 minutes of just spinning it aimlessly. So I guess the previous owner, or our previous owner, has stripped the engine mount bolt somehow. So that'll be another job for another week to either re-cut the thread with a tapper or maybe time insert it or something so that that doesn't give us any problems in the future. But for now it's done up nice and tight, just not the first try. So get on with putting it back together. I'll finish putting the engine mount on and then aux belt can go on. Yeah, not far off.
From the past, wanna escape my pain. I just wanna be a better person. I deserve this. I just wanna break these chains. Always asking for greatness. True to myself, I never fake it.
The crank pulley is bolted back on, torqued to 20 Newton meters, and then the aux belt can be refitted. Turning the tensioner clockwise with a 15mm spanner as before creates enough slack to slip the belt back on.
All I do is put the work in, no option. This was everything I ever wanted. Created a legacy off of me, just being honest. And the fake ones hate, but it's all to no avail. They wanna see me lose, but you know I never fail.
Then it's a good idea to turn the engine over by hand again, just to check the belt is fitted correctly. The air filter is the last thing to go back on before we can fire up the engine. The heaters are put on full hot with the cap off the coolant reservoir, and the engine is left running until up to temperature to bleed the coolant system.
Ice in my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah.
Finally, I took the timing cover back off to make sure nothing is rubbing and the belt is still tight, and to check for coolant leaks from the water pump, but thankfully all looks and sounds good. Then I topped up the coolant as it dropped about a litre when bleeding.
Every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no I push play. I won't stop till I make a change. I withdraw on the things I make. I turn flaws into flawless traits. I build tall, never capped in space. I won't stop till I hear him say,
I filled out the Cambelt service sticker with my sloppy handwriting and stuck it on the slam panel so there's always a record with the car that it has been done. If the next owner can figure out what it says, that is. So that's the cam belt and water pump change done. If you're still watching this far in, there's a couple more little jobs I got done at the weekend, but first I'd like to thank you for watching and ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want. The first job is removing the under bonnet sound deadening to improve the look of the engine bay and allow heat to escape more easily. This is super easy to do, and obviously it's a free mod. You just pop the black plastic clips out with a pair of pliers and the insulation drops off. In my opinion, this looks way better than before. To finish off, I picked up another pair of Pilot Sport 4S for the rear, to match the front. These are replacing two mismatched Chinese ditch finders that are so bad that the back end stepped out mid-corner, while the front was nowhere near losing traction. The new to me tyres are part worn and cost just over half the price of brand new PS4S, and with 5mm of tread left, they'll last a decent while under the light rear end of the Astra. That's all for this video, thanks for watching.